YouTube channel Nos Confunden. Imagine for a moment that gold and silver, which in alchemy represent the sun and the moon, are not distant allegories, but physical manifestations contained within the very dome we inhabit. The sun is not a distant star, but a shining circle suspended in our nearby sky, whose invisible walls, the invisible projector dome, limit our perception. The moon, a silvery reflection of what is hidden, is also part of this grand illusion. Projected in the same theater of shadows, we have been trained not to question. The sun and the moon do not rule from outer heavens, but from the internal skies of this world dome, governing cycles that reflect the grand cosmic machinery within which we are confined. Nos Confunden. Hermes, who said, "As above, so below," revealed a hidden secret in this very statement. The above is not what we have been taught, that unreachable outer space, but rather the oceans that lie above the heavens, above the invisible dome, a kingdom of waters, different and complex to understand, that marks the limit of what we are allowed to see. And the below are the lands beyond the ice walls. Those hidden lands, out of reach of current humanity, prisoners of a mental control system designed by the custodians and the Anunnaki, the true rulers of the world from the shadows. Nos Confunden. We must also add to the below the understanding of inner lands, passages and paths used by various past humanities, especially the empire of Great Tartaria. Even today, there are remnants of the great inner cities they forged before the reset of 1728. The invisible dome is not only a physical barrier, but also a metaphor for the mental prison in which we have been submerged. Nos Confunden. The word heaven comes from the Latin caelum, which not only means what is above, but also engraved, as a work that has been inscribed on our perception. Caelum could also have a root in the Latin verb caelare, meaning to carve or engrave. This connection suggests that the ancients viewed the sky as a kind of sculpted dome or celestial engraving. In many ancient cultures, the sky was imagined as a fixed structure, similar to a dome or decorated vault. This meaning of engraved or sculpted fits well with the cosmological vision of some ancient societies that perceived the sky as something structured, perhaps even designed or inscribed with divine or astronomical patterns. What we have believed to be the universe, from the Latin universum, meaning everything turning as one, is nothing more than the perception without realizing that what we call the universe is just a fragment of the truth. The cosmos, which for the ancients meant order or adornment, is the veil that has been placed over our eyes to give us the impression of beauty and harmony, while behind it, reality dissolves into layers and cycles unknown to us. Nos Confunden. Language itself is a tool of control. The word apocalypse comes from the Greek apokalypsis, which means revelation or discovery, but it has been perverted to refer to the end of times. Apocalypse does not mean the end, but the revelation of what has been hidden. The fracture of reality that allows us to see beyond the veil, to discover that we live in a system that confines us, that matter, from the Latin materia, rooted in mother, is the clay that binds us to this physical world, while what we truly are is the source, trapped in the endless cycle of birth and death, manipulated by the custodians so that we never see beyond the horizon of the dome. YouTube channel Nos Confunden. The Tree of Life is a map of spiritual ascension, with each sphere representing a different state of consciousness. Each of these worlds is confined under its own dome, and Yggdrasil, the cosmic tree of Norse mythology, also represents the connection between worlds, which are separated by invisible barriers as if they were distinct circles surrounded by ice. The Anunnaki and the custodians have made us believe that the only reality is this, the material world in which we live. But the true apocalypse will be the revelation that there are other worlds, other lands, beyond the physical and mental barriers that have been imposed upon us. In this play on words, even the meaning of matter, the substance that composes the universe, comes from the same root as mother, suggesting that matter is what nourishes and imprisons us at the same time. And what is the sky if not a reflection of our prison? The Kalum is the engraving that limits our perception, and the cosmos is the adornment that prevents us from seeing beyond. The true fracture of reality will come when we understand that everything we believe to know has been a grand theater designed to confuse us. Words themselves are tools that have conditioned us, but they can also be the keys to freeing our perception from the invisible chains that bind us. In each syllable, in each term, there is a hidden truth that has been altered, distorted by those who control knowledge. It is in that discovery where true freedom lies, the one that lies beyond the dome, beyond the ice walls, in the inner space that has been veiled from our eyes.
YouTube channel Nos Confunden.
The ice walls, which delimit the borders of the known lands and the worlds beyond the first dome, are not simple physical barriers. Their nature is much more complex. These walls act like plasma membranes, similar to those of a cell, allowing selective passage between worlds. Just as biological membranes regulate the exchange of information and nutrients between the inside and outside of the cell, these walls serve to control what enters and exits, both physically and energetically. The portals embedded within these walls are not visible to ordinary eyes, for they operate on frequencies and vibrations that current humanity, under the veil of the invisible projector dome, cannot perceive. These passages are, essentially, points of resonance, where the vibrations of the dome itself and the surrounding energetic structures align to open what, from an alchemical perspective, would be a solve et coagula, the dissolution of barriers and the coagulation of a new reality. In other words, portals allow the transition between states of existence, from a reality confined within the known lands to other hidden lands beyond the walls.
YouTube channel Nos Confunden.
Like cellular membranes, which allow the entry of certain essential elements, these walls filter access, but only to those who possess the key to harmonize their frequency with that of the portal. This knowledge, long lost or suppressed, was once mastered by the ancestrals, beings who managed to cross beyond the first dome before the last reset, into lands free from custodial and Anunnaki influence. They knew that the walls were not mere blocks of ice, but energetically active structures, capable of detecting the intentionality and spiritual state of those attempting to cross. They also implanted various radars to detect matter near these mysterious walls that confine us. The passage through these portals is not a traditional physical journey. It requires an internal alignment, a knowledge of the hidden laws governing the domes and the walls. Some ancient texts and certain fragments believed to be lost make reference to these veiled doors, mentioning that those who possess the balance of internal alchemical energies can transcend the limits that keep humanity captive. It is precisely here where the lands beyond the walls become accessible, lands where the ancestrals and the Anakim giants, among others, dwell, out of reach of the custodians. The ice walls, then, do not only function as barriers, but as guardians of the deepest secrets of our existence, similar to how a cell protects its nucleus. And just as a cell can receive external signals that alter its behavior, so too can the walls and the first dome. They respond to the collective energy of the world dome, and in particular to the custodians, who have learned to manipulate these resonances to keep the doors closed to most.
YouTube channel Nos Confunden.
The portals are described as bridges of light in certain ancient texts, suggesting that passage between worlds is not merely physical but also spiritual and vibrational. Travelers must dissolve their attachment to material reality, solve, and then coagulate their consciousness into a new form, coagula, to cross. In this sense, the passages are like alchemical doors, points of transmutation where the soul and body can change form, move between realities, and pass through the membranes of the dome.
Nos Confunden.
The concept of as above, so below becomes particularly relevant here, as the journey between lands and domes is not only a spatial displacement, but also a process of internal reflection. The walls function as a cosmic mirror. Those who manage to pass through them do so because they have first crossed the mental and spiritual barriers that the custodians have implanted in our minds. Only by transcending the mental prison can one access the worlds beyond the dome. Thus, the discovery of these portals not only implies an outer journey, but also a journey into the unknown depths of our consciousness.
YouTube channel Nos Confunden.